A cowboy, a pizza man, and a sailor walk into a bar. A lot of you fellas like the idea of dating strippers and probably have found out that a lot of strippers don't like the idea of dating customers. Besides financially shooting yourself in the foot, here are some reasons why we don't date our customers. It's Monday in the dressing room, and here are some stories of how I learned firsthand not to date customers. There was a customer who came in a lot who looked like the Marlboro Man, and we called him Cowboy. Cowboy had been coming in for a year, and he was always respectful, always kind, always just made you feel like a person and like he was really listening to you. And I felt like I had a pretty decent friendship with Cowboy. And over the time, I eventually started to kind of get a little bit like attracted to Cowboy. He was much older than me, like my parents' age, much older than me. But he was my idea of a really decent stand-up guy. On my birthday, as my present to myself, because I was working, I broke all the rules at my particular club and gave this man my phone number. He and I went on a couple of dates, and we talked about all kinds of things, like our lives and what brought him to the club and all these kinds of things. And after 2 dates, knowing each other pretty well, we decided to go down to another state together, even though it was going to be a few hours drive, especially round trip. It was going to be quite a few hours drive, to visit some of our friends who had gone to work at another club. We had a really great time at this particular club, and we had so much fun, and he was very much like focused on me and not like flirting with my friends. And I thought, wow, this guy, is really cool and really like someone that I could see myself really seeing for a while. At dinner after the club, he let me know that, in fact, he was such a good guy that he had been married I think 3 times, and was in fact still married with a teenage daughter at home. For the longest time, all of my friends had been really close to this one particular guy who worked in the pizza industry. And he had a pretty up there job in the pizza industry, so he was spending a lot of money in the club and making a lot of friends. I found myself, sitting next to this guy at breakfast when all of us went out many, many times. And for the longest time, I really couldn't stand him because he would pretend to be smarter than he was and pretend to know things that he didn't. And that was really frustrating for me because if it was something that I knew, we would get into an argument about it. But something that I noticed about this guy is that no matter how fervently I argued and no matter how aggressively I stood by any kind of knowledge that I had, he was more and more interested, not more intimidated and less interested. And so eventually, after a lot of patience and kindness and treating me really decently, as a person with a brain, I decided to date this guy. Now, this particular guy had dated several of my friends, and he was seeking out girls in the industry to date. And so I was not the first stripper that he dated, but almost immediately, as soon as I started dating him, he didn't want me to strip, and he didn't even want me to camp. So basically, I was able to date this guy, but I was not able to make money to provide for myself. So here was a guy who was king of strip clubs. He was friends with every stripper that he could possibly be friends with. He bought dances all the time. He dated strippers. He was always asking out strippers. He hung out with strippers as friends who, when you actually dated him, basically refused to let you strip. Obviously, not every person who dates a stripper treats them badly. Not everyone is a jerk, and not everyone isn't the right person for that stripper. Just because you meet in the club doesn't mean that you shouldn't be together. I did meet a sailor who actually wasn't a sailor yet, had just signed on in the club, who was there to pick up the bartender, was trying to pick up the bartender, who I fell for immediately. And we dated about a year, and we're blissfully happy, and then they sailed away. So there are definitely occasions that you meet someone that you should date or you're in the strip club, but the vast majority are folks who think that they can handle dating a stripper, but it turns out that they really can't, or they have something to hide. And that is Monday in the dressing room. That is my storytelling time. If you enjoyed it, please hit like, please hit subscribe, and I will see you next week.